Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Alex Kennington. I am a fantasy and science fiction author, and my debut romantasy novel, Blood Beneath the Snow, comes out in March from Ace Books. Today, I am going to talk about how I got a book deal, a six-figure book deal to be precise, which is absolutely beyond my wildest imaginings. It's a story that is both very normal, very average experience for publishing, and very cool in some other ways too. And my hope is that you'll be able to take something from it and learn as you're going about your own publishing experience. Getting a book deal relies on a very specific combination of hard work, luck, and timing, which can be really frustrating. It's a creative industry that really is different from any other, I think. In this business, there are people who are passionate, and you have companies that are trying to make money and sell a product. I wrote a book that happened to hit the market at the exact right time that romantasy was seeing a really big spike in popularity. And while yes, I work hard and my work is good, I think it's very important to acknowledge that there are aspects of luck and good timing involved in something like getting a book deal. In a world where money is often seen as indicative of how much skill a person has, I think it's important to recognize that book publishing is a strange field where that's not always necessarily the case. Ultimately, I'm sharing my story of how I got a book deal with you because I think it's important to bring transparency into the conversations about publishing. Publishing is an art that is just very unclear sometimes. There's not a ton of information out there on how exactly it works. And so my goal is to be honest and straightforward with you about my own experience in the hopes that you can learn from it and get something out of it too. So let's talk about how I got a absolutely life-changing book deal. I want to start by giving you a brief overview of the timeline of events and how this happened. I first came up with the idea for Blood Beneath the Snow, my debut novel, in November of 2019. Blood Beneath the Snow will not hit shelves until 2025. That is more than 5 years. It's 5.5, give or take a month or so. I worked on writing and editing the book from November of 2019 to about the fall of 2021. And from there, I started querying and looking for a literary agent. That took me about 9 months. So end of 2021 to summer of 2022. I spent the rest of 2022 working on edits to the book again with my literary agent. That was about 6 months. And then in January of 2023, we started submitting the book to editors. From there, I did not receive an offer to publish my book until January of 2024. It was a few days after my 1-year mark of being on submission with the book. The book will release and be on shelves in March of 2025. That's kind of a brief overview of the timeline that my own journey has taken. There are people who have much faster experiences, and there are also plenty of people who have longer experiences. I first got the idea for the book in November of 2019. I wrote the first draft really quick. It was the kind of idea that came to me and then just pretty much spilled out of me onto the paper. There was no stopping it once I had started. That first draft was very, very bad. The 5 subsequent drafts after that were also not great. I took that novel and wrote it start to finish 5 different times before I finally got it right. The thing that finally helped me figure out what I was doing when it came to my book was learning more about story structure. I was at a place where I had this idea and I could see it fully formed in my mind. I knew what I wanted readers to be feeling when they read it, but my craft, my writing skill, my ability was not there yet. It took me quite a while to get to a place where my writing craft was at that level. And I put in a lot of hard work before that happened. And eventually it did. Eventually I got it to a place where I felt very comfortable with the idea of letting other people read it and sending it out to literary agents. So that's what I did. I started querying and looking for a literary agent. That was in the fall of 2021. I had decided by that point that I wanted to try pursuing traditional publishing before I self-published or decided not to take that route. I was willing to deal with the long wait times that I knew were coming in order to try and have my book published by one of the big 5 publishers. That was my ultimate goal. I needed a literary agent in order to do this. Literary agents are absolutely invaluable. They are so helpful, and nowadays, most of the big 5 publishers will not accept unagented submissions. So you need a literary agent in order to get your work in front of most editors at big 5 publishing houses. Working with a literary agent is a business partnership. So they submit to those editors for you, and then they also negotiate any contracts with your publisher on your behalf. However, literary agents are in high demand. There are many people who want to be published and many people who would like a literary agent to represent them. So in order to determine who they take on as clients, you are required to submit your work to literary agents. And if they like your work enough, they will offer to represent you and your book. Even going into the querying process, I was well aware that getting a literary agent can be a very difficult thing, even if your work is high quality. A lot of this industry is subjective, and querying literary agents is no exception to the rule. When I started querying, I was very excited, very hopeful, and very determined to make it work, even though I knew it was going to be tough. 9 months came and went. It was the summer of 2022, and I was just about ready to give up on that book. At that point, I had sent out about 100 queries to literary agents, and only 4 people had requested to read more of my work. That's a very low number for having sent out that many queries, and I figured that, it just wasn't the right time for that book. During those 9 months, I had written an entirely new book, thinking that if my first one did not secure me a literary agent, then when I was ready, when I had finished querying everyone I could pull that book and start querying the second. At this point, there was one agent who still had my full manuscript, but it had been a long time since I had sent it over, and I kind of figured that I was getting a silent no, that I was being ghosted, and that the agent wasn't actually interested in representing me. So I decided that as a last hurrah for my book, I was going to send off one query to a small press. Small indie presses are publishers that operate on a much smaller scale than the traditional big 5 publishing houses, and most do not require an agent in order to submit to them. It's a different form of traditional publishing, and at that point, without having any bites, I figured it was worth a shot to submit to this small publisher. A few weeks later, they emailed me and requested to read the full manuscript. I still assumed it was not going to go anywhere, so I sent it over to them anyway. And then a few weeks after that, they emailed me and let me know that they actually wanted to publish my book. I was shocked, to say the absolute least. After so long without any success, I kind of figured that it just wasn't going to happen for this book. But I took that offer and I went to all of the agents who still had my query and the one agent who still had my full manuscript. And I let them know, hey, I have an offer. Please let me know if you're interested in representing me. From there, my current agent, the one who had my full manuscript and hadn't gotten back to me at that point, let me know that she wanted to hop on a call. From there, she told me that she wanted to offer to represent me in my work. I was absolutely thrilled. And she also told me that she thought that it would be good to turn down the small press offer and try to take the book out wider to big 5 publishers. That meant I had a very scary decision to make. I had an offer of publication right in front of me. It maybe would not have provided me with a lot of money or a lot of sales or a lot of eyes on my work, but it was something. And I'd spent so long with nothing that I really thought about taking it. I am very grateful that my agent had the confidence to encourage me to think about it. I had a gut feeling that I needed to turn that small press offer down. So that's what I did. I signed with my literary agent in the summer of 2022. We spent about 6 months editing the book again to make sure it was ready to go out to editors. And then in January of 2023, we had our first round of submission. I was very excited, and we proceeded to spend the next year total, receiving nothing but rejections. That was pretty tough for me. I had spent a really long time working toward getting an agent, and I'd already given up a lot of hope by the time that I did sign with my agent. I knew my book was good, but it wasn't quite enough to get me all the way. This brings up, again, the issue of subjectivity in publishing. I had landed a literary agent. I knew for a fact that the book I had written was good. It was a good book that people would enjoy if they had the chance to read it. But every editor that we were reaching out to said they didn't love it quite enough. In about September, I went to my agent and I asked her if she thought it would be good to potentially take my manuscript, which was a young adult fantasy, and change a few things to try and make it for a more adult market. The book itself dealt with a lot of dark themes, and the characters were older teenagers anyway. I felt like changing their age from 17 and a half to 21, 22, it wouldn't have required a ton of changes. This is when romantasy was starting to hit a boom again. There were books like Fourth Wing coming out, and I wondered if maybe capitalizing on that success would offer me more opportunities. I also thought too that perhaps the adult market wasn't quite as crowded with romantasy books as the young adult market was at the time. I spoke with my agent about this and she said, go for it. I spent the next few weeks taking the young adult version of the book and creating a new version that was an adult book. So I aged the characters up, I changed a few plot points, and added in a few things, and really it didn't take super long, maybe 2 to 3 weeks for me to get that new version of the manuscript ready. And in October, we started sending out the adult version of the manuscript. I got my hopes up again, only to continue hearing nothing but silence and rejection for the next 5 months. In late 2023, my mental health took a significant nosedive. I was not having a good time. I really considered whether I needed to just pull my book from submission and self-publish it. I thought maybe that was the only way I was going to be able to get in front of readers. And sometimes that is the case. There are plenty of books that go on submission that never receive an offer. I was preparing myself for that inevitability. I had to take a break from writing at that point because it was just getting so tough on my mental health. There's a saying that publishing is slow until it's not, and that is absolutely the case because 2 days after my 1-year anniversary of being on submission, I got a very interesting email from my agent. One of the editors who had the adult version of the manuscript wanted to hop on a call with me. I was absolutely thrilled. I also was trying not to get my hopes up too high. There are a couple of different reasons or places in the timeline of publishing a book that an editor might ask to have a call with you. Sometimes it happens before an editor has gone to their bigger team and asked for permission to make an offer on your book. Sometimes they call you before then. Other times when an editor calls you, they have that approval and now they just want to make sure that they click with you and that your working relationship is going to be good. I did not know which of these would be the case, so I was trying very hard not to freak out, I guess. I was trying very hard not to get too hopeful because I knew that this could still be an instance that ended in rejection. I hopped on the call with the editor the next day. It was a Friday, I remember that. And we clicked instantly. She got my book, and it was fascinating to me because I'd spent all of this time getting these rejections from people who said that they loved it, but not quite enough. And here was a person on the phone with me, a publishing professional, who was more enthusiastic about my book than anyone else had ever been. I also found out that at the time of our call, she did have permission to make an offer. So we chatted, we clicked, things went really well. I spent the entire weekend in suspense, and then on Monday, my agent called me to tell me that I had a publishing offer. To my surprise, this was not just any publishing offer either. I was being offered what's called a preempt. A preempt is where the publisher comes to you with a very high starting number. They do that with a condition though, and usually the condition is that you have to accept it within 24 hours. I had to make that decision whether or not to accept this preempt, and eventually I did, because I had such a good feeling about the editor that I had a phone call with. I called and accepted the offer, and that was that. Since then, this whole process has been an absolute whirlwind. It's been everything from editing the book with my editor, making it even better than it was before, despite all of my edits before then. It's been getting the cover of my dreams and doing a cover reveal and having the chance to see artwork that just so truly represented my book. And now advanced reader copies are out. There are people who are reading an early version of the book and offering their feedback, which just feels totally surreal to have my work in people's hands. My experience getting a literary agent, being on submission, it taught me a lot. I think that the traditional publishing industry is an absolutely wild roller coaster for anyone to embark on. It also requires a lot of hard work. Whether you choose to traditionally publish or self-publish, you really have to be prepared to give it your all and work very hard. No part of this has been easy, but I also have loved every part of it at the same time. One of the toughest things about this whole process is that so much is out of your control. The only thing that you can really make any difference on is the quality of your manuscript and the craft and writing skill that you possess. I've also learned that jealousy is a really tough emotion to deal with. There were people who had signed with their agent after I had signed with mine, who announced publishing deals long before I ever had one. That was really hard to watch. There were times that I genuinely had to just take a break from social media because I couldn't handle seeing other people's success, because it made me so frustrated and sad and bitter, and that wasn't what I wanted to be feeling. Ultimately, protecting your mental health as you pursue traditional publishing is absolutely key. You almost have to go above and beyond to protect your mental health. The things that I was doing normally that were keeping me pretty well adjusted no longer were enough. I had to really go out of my way to make sure that I was keeping myself sane during that whole process. I do think that if traditional publishing is your goal, no matter how long it takes, you can keep trying. And there are more opportunities out there for you. Timing and luck play a huge role, but you are only guaranteed to never have the luck and the timing right if you don't try. So that's the story of how I got a six-figure book deal. I would love to answer any other questions that you might have about that whole journey and that whole process, so please leave them in the comments. And I hope that we're able to connect from here and build a nice kind of community. I'm really excited about being on YouTube, and I have lots of video ideas and I'm hoping to post frequently. So I'm really excited to get to know all of you. I hope that you'll like and subscribe, and that if you have not already, that you will go find my book on Goodreads and add it there. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.